So welcome all to the May Entuity Tech Talk. Today's topic, as you can see, is role-based access. My name is Parish Mistry. I'm based in the UK office at Entuity. And also with me today is my colleague Larry Bailon, a system engineer at Entuity in the US. We'll be your host for the next 30 minutes or so. Tech Talks, as most of you know, are designed for our customer and technical members of our authorized partner community. These sessions are recorded and are available on demand from the Entuity YouTube Center. They're a good resource for learning more about the product or reviewing features you may be interested in implementing. A few housekeeping items before we get started. The call is on mute to eliminate any noise, but feel free to ask any questions via the chat panel. We'll have time at the end for any questions that have been posted. So let's get started with the content. Right. So today we'll be using the recently completed Entuity 16.5 patch 01 release of the software. On that point, if you have any questions on this new release, please don't hesitate to contact your Entuity system engineer. We'll be more than happy to discuss the new contents. This includes the new integration into the BMC TrueSight dashboard, as well as other enhancements making monitoring of your network more efficient and effective. So today's topic is role-based access. So what is role-based access? Role-based access allows an administrator to provide different permissioning of users and groups to the various functionality and features of Entuity, and also at different levels. As you'll see when Larry goes through a demonstration and some use cases, Entuity has a very detailed and granular role-based access feature. Examples of where I personally have seen this used effectively at our customers include often in NOCs, where you can use role-based access to provide relevant access to different levels of users. So a level 1 would generally have read-only and perhaps some configuration task run capability. Level 2 will probably have a bit more, and you can go all the way through to someone like level 3 who may have full rights to all the features of the toolset. Also often seen in larger customers, they have specific groups who handle a specific admin or configuration task. So you're not allowed to give them full admin rights to everything. For example, you may want a user who just creates services, or another group that is allowed just to create configuration tasks. So again, role-based access can be used here to provide the relevant permissions. And finally, in the MSP environment, you'll also have users or even customers access only the view to that specific customer. And again, perhaps even there, they may have different levels of access. So one of the customers in Europe that I look after, they have a view permission just to access a single type of SLA report, and that's used by their service delivery manager for that particular customer to be able to just run that report on a monthly basis and then take that with them when they go and visit the customer. So that, in a nutshell, is what you might consider using this feature for. I'm going to now hand over to Larry, who will show you some of how it can be accomplished within the product. So let me hand over permission. Over to you, Larry.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larry Bailon. I'm a system engineer based in the U.S., and I am a peer of Paresh's. I'm going to share out my my entire screen, and you will see a web page from an Entuity server. So I'll start by explaining in general how the permissions are used, and then we'll pick up a couple of specific use cases to demo. So right now I have selected or browsed to the account management page, and this is what you would see in a default installation of Entuity. So if you install Entuity on a new server, basically if you look down at the bottom of the web page, there are two groups of users that are automatically configured. There's the all users group, and there's also a group labeled administrators, and there are also two default users that are created when the software is installed. Admin is mapped to the administrators group, which has full permissions for everything, and the user named the user is mapped to the all users group, which has no permissions but read only. If I select the all users group down at the bottom here, you can see that the tool permissions, report permissions, and task permissions, these are three areas where you can set permissions for role-based access. They're all displayed. If I select the administrators group, however, they all go grayed out, and that is basically a safety feature we've put into the software. So you're not allowed to delete the administrators group, nor are you allowed to change the permissions, because you could essentially, as an administrator, lock yourself out of the system and prevent yourself from creating and administering other users of the system. The area that we're going to talk about here are the permissioning. There's actually two things that you need to do when you are going to set the system up for role-based access. Number one is to create groups and assign permissions. That's done here. I'll go to the Explorer tab, and the other task that you have to perform is actually, I'll go into this edit view, there's an access control tab. So within the Explorer tool, this is where you set which groups of users have access to which views, and a view can contain devices, ports, services, and things like IPSLA tests with the latest release. So we'll go back and to the account management page, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new user. So I'm simply going to add a new user to the system. That user's now been created, and if you look at the bottom of the web page, that user that I just created was automatically added to the all users group. So any new user you add to the system will be added there. If I go to the all users group, you'll see that none of the tick boxes are checked. So they only have view access. None of the report permissioning has access. But let me add a new group, and we'll call this NOC Level 1. And typically, NOC Level 1 users are going to have very, very limited permissions. They're typically the people who answer the phones and do initial triage on a problem, and then if they can't resolve it, they'll send that to the next level up. So I've created the group. The next thing I need to do is to select what permissions I'm going to give them. By default, anytime you create a new group, they have no permissions. If I click the tool permissions for this group, you can see none of the tick boxes are checked off. So I'm going to give them some basic event administration tools. I'm going to allow them to do incident editing, which allows them to put things like comments into the events, and I'm going to allow them to do event suppression. I'm not going to give them any type of permissions for inventory, nor am I going to give them any ability to do any view administration. I'm also going to prevent them from doing any in-depth troubleshooting. I will allow them to do flow inspection because they may need to look at flows. And that's going to be about it. I'll click OK. That sets those permissions. The next tab is the report permissions, and just a little explanation on how this works. So the default report permission, again, because I created a new group, is that they have no access to any of the reports. If I open up any one of the report categories, you'll see that the hyperlink here is basically is set to use default. That means it will use whatever the default settings for the entire report permissions top level access is. So that is no access. I can come in here and for any of the individual reports, I can change these permissions and they'll override what the global permissions are for reports. For this particular group of users, I'm not going to give them access to any of the reports. And then the last category is task permissions. So we've added the ability to script common network configuration tasks, and there are a default set of tasks that are part of the base software. This task permissions tab allows the administrator to provide access to specific tasks that have been configured. So as you configure network configuration tasks within the system, this list will grow. This is just the current list of tasks that are configured for this particular system. So then the last thing I have to do is I have to click the Edit Users button, and I need to add this user to the group. And then, as I stated before, right now I've added the user to the group, but the NOC Level 1 group has no access to any of the views. So I have to provide access to at least one of the views, and I'm going to give NOC Level 1 access to this particular subnet. So I'll edit the view. Under Access Control, I will bring this NOC Level 1 group of users in, so they're now granted access. You'll notice there's also a tick box here that's unchecked that would allow this group of users to modify the contents and edit this, this view. We're not going to give them that permission. Typically, that type of permission is given to users at a higher level or administrators only. I'm going to click OK. You'll see here, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of the web page, I am logged in as the administrator, and you'll see across the top here the main tools. I have access to reports and everything else. I'm going to log out. I'm going to log back in as that user I just created. And when I log in, I'll be dropped into the status summary, which is the default landing page for any new users. But I'll go to the Explorer tab, and you'll see that I only have access to that one subnet. All the other views are hidden from me. In addition, there's a lock icon on the folder, which indicates that I have no permission to change the contents. I can come in here if I select a particular device, like this router here. I do have access to all the performance metrics. If you notice at the top, the report category from the main menu is not even displayed because I have no access to that. If I go to the administration tab, only things that I have access to are shown here. And again, I've given this group of users permission for the suppression rules. I've given them no permission for configuration management, and from account management, all I have the ability to do is change my password. So let me log out. We'll log back in, and we're going to go back to the account management page. I'm going to create a new user and a new group, and I'm going to assign that new user to a group that I'm going to name NOC Level 2. So I'll add a second user to the system. Then I'll come down to the bottom of the web page. And I'll add a new group called NOC Level 2. I'm going to select that group, and this time for the NOC, I want to give them access to flow inspection, ticker, trace route, the ability to launch the remote terminal so they can establish CLI sessions with the network devices. I'm also going to give them access to reports. And I'm also going to allow them to do incident editing and event suppression similar to what I did for the NOC Level 1 users. And I'll also give them access to IPSLA tests. Once I've done that, I click the OK button. I'm also going to give them access to reports. So the default report permissions are no access, but I'm going to give them access to a subset of the activity reports. So for each one of these, I'm going to give them view, run, and scheduling permissions. I'll let them look at the device health report, the IPSLA reports, because they do have permissions to run the tests, so give them permission to run the reports, and I'll give them access to a few of the port charts. But you can pretty much get the idea here. We're very granular with the permissions that we add for the reports. And then I'm going to come back to the tool permissions just briefly. And you'll see here, I've highlighted Configuration Management Administration. If I check this box, then this group of users will have access to the entire set of configuration management tools. So any tasks that have been created will be available to this group of users. In addition, if I check that box, they'll also have the ability to create new management tasks. That's not what I want to do. I want to basically give this group of users access to some specific configuration tasks. So I leave this box unchecked, and I come to the task permissioning box here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them the ability to run the port up and port down commands at the port level. I'll click OK, and then I'll add this user to this new user group that I've created. And again, the last thing I need to do is to come into the Explorer and give them access to views. So for this group of users, I'm going to give them access to this subnet. So under Access Control, I'll give NOC Level 2 access to that. And I'm also going to give them access to the firewalls view. So again, if you've created a view, only the group that created the view has access to it. I'll give NOC Level 2 access to this. And while I'm logged in as the administrator, I'll select a router here. If I right-click, you'll see there's a configuration management menu that allows me, because I am the administrator, to do things like copy the configuration, delete the community string, add a new community string, and so forth. And then if I go to the port level, I also have access to a number of different tools. Let me log out, and I'll log back in as the user I just created. And you'll see now, if I go to the Explorer tool, this group of users has access to the 1044.1 subnet and the firewalls view. And if I want to look at the configuration management tasks, again, I'll select that router I selected before. At the top level, you'll see here that this person has no permissions to do any device-related network configuration tasks. And if I open up and go to the port level, you'll see that they only have the ability to do port up and port down. They have no ability to do any VLAN type tasks as the administrator was able to do. You'll see that with this group of users, the reports pull down is visible. If I select that, it will bring up all of the report categories. So you'll notice something here. I only gave this user access to activity reports. However, all of the different report categories are displayed. However, if I go into any one of these report categories, you'll see that I have no access to any of the reports in this repository. It's blank. If I go to the activity report category, you can see here I did give permission to a number of these reports, and I'm going to run the device health report, and I'll run that against this subnet. and you'll see here that the report ran, but one of the consequences is that this particular report has a sub-report that will run as well. And if I want to look at the specific events that are related to this particular device, you'll see here that it throws an error message. If I click here for additional details, you'll see that the user Paresh does not have permission to run the sub-report. So even though I gave them access to run the event, the device health summary report, I did not give the user access to run the sub-report. So what I'll do is I'll fix that problem. I'll log back in as the administrator. We'll go back into the account management screen, and under report permissions, I'll allow them to view and run the event details report, which that is the sub-report that'll run. And I'll log back in. This time when I go back into this report, I'll run the device health summary report. And this time when I run the sub-report, it runs correctly. So very quickly, I'll provide one more example. So under account management, I'll add a new user, just call this user user1. In some cases, managed service providers may want to provide access to a specific view for their customers, and normally that view would be the access to that view would be just view only. But rather than using the default all users view, it's best to create a view called view only, because then if you want to add additional permissions, you could also add those permissions rather than adding it to the all users view. You can also create group names specifically that identify your customers. Again, there's no permissions here. I'll just use the edit button to add this user to the system, and then I'll come back to the Explorer page, and I've just got a generic customer view created here. I'll edit that and then allow the view-only group to view this view. Again, you could name, if you're in a managed service provider, you could name that group name to identify your specific customer. Now when I log back in, I click OK, and customer X they have a window into the devices that you're managing for them. So I'll log back out, and with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll go to any Q&A. So, Pat, do we have any questions that came in?
Yes, Larry, we have one, and it is, how are permissions assigned using LDAP?
Okay, that's a good one. And I'll go back to the demo system and share out my screen. We'll go to the, let me log in. So yeah, typically most of our production customers do not use internal authentication. It's typically used in lab environments. So if I scroll down, I won't go through all of the LDAP settings, but most customers have some type of external authentication. I'll just enable this so that I can show you where the permissioning is done here. So you would add the information for your LDAP server. I'll go to next. This basically sets how searching is performed by our server when it does a lookup on the LDAP server, and then the next page you'll see that there are group mapping policies. So typically the way that this works is you create the Entuity groups just as I had demonstrated earlier today. So you'll see they're here, NOC Level 1, NOC Level 2, and then I edit this, and then you map these Entuity groups to either an individual LDAP user, or more commonly, it's going to be a specific group of users on your LDAP server that will have access to this. I'll just use a bogus group. The takeaway here is that this is case sensitive, and that this group name has to match the group name on the LDAP server identically. Once I click OK, you'll see that the NOC Level 1 group of users maps to G stands for group. If it was an individual user, it would be the letter U, and this is the name of the LDAP group it will map to. This way, once you're integrated with LDAP, then there's no need to manage individual users on the Entuity server. You do have to create the groups to assign the Entuity tool permissions, and then you basically map either a individual user or groups of users to the Entuity group. Do we have anything else, Pat?
Yeah, we have quite a few actually. And
Okay.
jumping back to your example just before the LDAP, how would we have known what subreports needed to have been granted?
That's an interesting, and let me go back to that, because when I did the run through of the demo, because I do the demo offline before we actually do it, the public facing webinar. I ran into this problem because I like this specific report for device health. Let me just run this real quick as the administrator. Yeah, it's embedded in the, if I hover over the hyperlink, and I'm not sure if the people on can see this, but it's in light text at the bottom of the frame. The actual URL that I'm going to launch is there. It's encoded, but I can see if I look at the bottom of the screen, there's a long URL, and then it says reports activity, event details. So let's go to, let's pick a different report, and if I go to the, hang on, go to the connectivity, actually let's go to the inventory report. So there's a spare ports report by view, so let's just run that. And you'll see here, this report reports on spare ports, but if you do it by view, like I've done, if you click on any of the specific devices, they will also, this will run a sub-report. So if I hover over the hyperlink, yeah, so it identifies the report as in the URL. It's encoded. You'll see it says %2F, which is basically encoded ASCII, spare ports underscore device. So you would know by hovering over the hyperlink which sub-report you would need to provide access to.
He also mentioned, how would we have known what subreports are needed to have been granted to a group?
That's really something that you would set as part of your own policies within your own organization. So if we go to the, you would have to review the reports. So if I go back, let me just go to account management really quickly here. So you can see, I mean, we're very granular on these reports. You can if you set this to view, run, and schedule, this basically, if the top level is set to this, every one of these reports will be displayed for this group of users. But you'd have to go through the individual reports and decide which ones would be applicable to a specific group of users, and it really depends on your own organization's policies as to which reports you would grant to which sets of users or groups of users.
Okay, thank you, Larry. And then can you apply multiple views to a user at the same time?
No, you have to go in. You have to go into each individual. I don't think we support multi-select. No, you can only select one view at a time. So if I wanted and set the permissioning one view at a time, we do have a RESTful API that's part of the standard software that would allow you to set the access control via the RESTful API, but it's still done, even with the RESTful API, you would do one view at a time, but it can be scripted in the background, so it can be run as a job. But if you're doing it from the web UI, it's individual views only. There's no multi-select.
Okay, and then the last question is, are there logs where I can see who and when logged into Entuity?
There's an audit log that's part of the standard web UI that will indicate what was done to the system and who did it. In this case, I logged in as the administrator. But as far as logging in and logging out, there's an HTTPD access log. So user logins are stored in a log file on the Entuity server. This log file is designed to identify certain things that have been done to the system. So what I've done here is I've modified the customer X view to add the view only group. If I look at for NOC Level 2, I added the user Paresh to that, and then it also indicates what permissions I've done at the tool level for this particular group.
This is also, again, another good use case to actually use users and groups. So as Larry has gone in here as admin, everything shows up as admin. So if you did have different users and groups set up, it also helps with the audit log, knowing who's actually done a particular task, so you can blame them afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, this is using the default user of admin. Okay. You have anything else, Pat?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
All right, very good. Let me stop sharing here and we'll wrap it up.
Great, thanks, Larry. Some great questions there as well. So just to wrap up, I hope you found that session useful. As a reminder, it will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel. There's also some up and coming events for those in North America. There is a BMC Digital Day in Toronto on June the 5th, and there's a BMC Federal Day in Washington DC on June the 7th. So if you're around there, please pop by. It would be great to catch up with you and have a chat. The next Tech Talk is on June the 14th, so look forward to seeing you all there. Again, if you've got any suggestions in terms of Tech Talk topics you'd like to cover, please contact tech.talks@entuity.com. A final reminder, which Larry will have to do for me, I don't have rights, thank you, is also just to take advantage of the Entuity Training Academy. This is a great resource, provides training information, knowledge base, product support information, being updated all the time. It's part of our new website, so again at entuity.com. If you go to the top banner, there's now a login link which will bring you to the Training Academy homepage. Well, you'll be able to create an account at the bottom of the page, so definitely worth doing that. It gives you access to additional information. So with that, it's thanks for attending today, and hope to see you all on June the 14th, and enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you.